But now it's time for the real show to begin. Just as soon as I finish setting up my iPad. This is my first big show and I like to think I'm quite professional, but I do have to make sure I've got my set list here, so in case I get lost, I know where to go. I say my iPad, it's not actually mine, it's my mum's. Yes. So I need to make sure that when I give it back to her, I delete all of the stuff off of it, because if she ends up going onto it late at night and scrolling through, she'll be going, what the hell have I been doing to raise someone who talks this much bullshit? To which, in that regard, I'd like to say, Mum, the apple didn't fall far from the tree in that regard. But yeah, it's my first big show, everybody! Oh, it feels so good to get some gratification from that. I've had so many stiff audiences in the last couple of gigs I've done, so it's so good to have that energy again. Yes! Oh, yeah. But yeah, no, my first big show, we got so many people here in the venue. We got people from all over the place. We got people from Yorkshire in tonight. Not quite sure what that says about me, that my fans are that far away from me, but still, they made the effort to come down here, so thank you so much to those guys.
Yeah, we did. No worries.
Yeah, you did. We went for Franco Manca earlier, it was lovely. And also, big thanks to Tuve for doing a stand-up warm-up for me. She was fantastic, so thank you very much for that. Yes. I have no idea why someone as successful and sexy as her is hanging out with a slob like me, but I'm very grateful about it. It is a bit of a double-edged sword, though, because since I had to follow someone who was that sexy, I'm now performing in front of an entire audience where all the men are doing this. Either that or they're getting a massive queue for the bathroom. Mind you, what's new around here? I joke, of course. This is Havana. I've been performing here almost since I started doing stand-up, actually. And it's been a phenomenal venue. All the shows I've done here are amazing, and all the people who have come down have been so supportive. And we've got people like Jill and Jack and Lucas who have always supported me down here, so thank you very much, you guys. I know it's not quite what you might imagine to be a typical comedic venue, or any kind of venue for any kind of show. In fact, if anything, it feels a bit like a dungeon. But it will be a funny dungeon. A fungeon. But many people have asked me, like, what's the best thing about finally doing my big show? Is it the excitement? Is it the gratification? Is it the ego? No.
The money. Tell them about the money, honey.
And I know that might make me sound like a sellout, but things have been very tight for me financially lately, so I'm glad to finally get a little bit of money in. It's been a bit of a struggle this past week, particularly with having to get the essentials like food. I mean, it's never a nice time when you have to kind of scrum together whatever you can find at home, which is what I've been doing. So I've been just going around just eating things I can find, like cereal and crackers and things that have been in my freezer for decades. And I don't, like, there's seriously stuff in my fridge and my freezer that I've been eating this week that's been there since I moved in. And I don't mean I bought it when I moved in, I mean it was there when I moved in. There's stuff in there that I think remembers a time when TVs had tubes and I ate them. I didn't know naan bread could turn green. It looked like Yoda's ear. I cannibalized Yoda. I just imagine him turning up to me with no ears and just going, food poisoning that will give you. But I was able to finally get some money in the last few days, so I went shopping on Friday, and I tell you what, this satisfaction of going to the shops when you've been like on the brink of starvation, nothing can describe that. Something I think Sylvester Stallone can definitely relate to, because not a lot of people know this, but just before he made the first Rocky movie, he was also incredibly poor and on the brink of starvation, which meant that he had to do a lot of things just to keep himself alive. things like starring in a porno movie. And I'm not joking, he actually did that. And it was called, and again, this is no joke, The Italian Stallion. That's a brilliant bit of cross-marketing right there, I tell you. That's like finding out if Schwarzenegger did a movie in his youth called Conan the Barbarian. Or Bruce Willis did one called Die Hard, Die Really Hard. Although that would technically make it a snuff film. Oh, there's the first ooh of the night. We'll have a counter on those. But since he was on the brink of starvation when he made that, I can't imagine he would have been in the best shape to be naked in camera. It would have looked like you'd taken a skeleton and put a Mr. Potato Head on it. And then you made it shag a woman who looked like she stapled a guinea pig to her crotch. It was the 1970s, that's what people looked like back then. Also, I can't imagine it would have led to the greatest amount of dirty talk either. It's just like, they're there and she's going, what are you thinking of right now? And he's going, the steak I'm gonna have after I finish this scene. But yeah, that's the economy that we live in, and it does kind of suck, and it has been difficult for all of us. The only benefit that I can see from this situation is that we can now all go into a pound shop and, without looking like an idiot, ask, how much is this? Because now it's a completely valid question. We all did it at some point in our lives, and we looked stupid. Now it's actually a valid question. But one last thing before I get on to the next routine. So a little tip, if you do have a bit of a trouble when you've not got a lot of food in and then you finally go shopping, try to eat something before you go. Because when you're going shopping and you're starving, any kind of filter of what you think would be a good meal goes completely out the window. You walk down the aisles and you look at things that you would normally never give the time of day and go, that looks tasty. And then you have your fill of the regular, and then you go back and you pick it up and say, why the hell did I buy this? Quinoa with beetroot and goose fat. I would never eat this. And then you put it in the freezer, and that's the origin of the person who moves in after you and something that they find in the freezer 20 years later and when they're starving. But yeah, it's been almost a year since I started doing my stand-up, or not quite to the day. My first one was on the 25th of March, which that was at a venue called The Lamb in Bognor. Anyone heard of it?
Yeah.
No? Oh, a couple of people have. Yeah, that was quite an interesting night, I can say the least. I think I damn near put the audience into a coma that night. Which, considering that The Lamb is right round the corner from the hospital in Bognor, that was quite convenient. I joke, of course. It was actually not that bad. I think it was quite good. And some people in this audience tonight were actually there. So I've got people who have been there since the beginning. So that's a nice little thing. But even though I've been doing it for a year, I've already gotten to this level where I'm doing my first ticketed show. And even though it's in a small venue, it's with, I can already tell, an awesome audience. And the fact that I've gotten here in less than a year, I think is amazing. But at the same time, as a newbie, I still have a lot to learn. Like I said, I've got my set list on my iPad here, and I just keep going down to it. But you also learn kind of like the little things you can only learn through experience, such as how you treat your audience, which I learned through a baptism of fire at a gig I did in Yapton Arms a few months ago. Which, if you don't know, Yapton Arms is this great little kind of in the middle of nowhere country pub where basically it looks like all the regulars are sitting around having a beer after they buried someone in a field outside because they looked at them funny. So that gives you the idea of the sort of audience I was dealing with. Very much the sort of old-fashioned, older, quite drunk country yokel people. And because of that, it creates this environment of sort of a fun, fancy, loose feeling, so you can kind of mess around. So I was doing it as a matinee that night, so I was on with a bunch of other comedians doing open mic 5 to 10 minute sets. So because of that, we were just kind of having fun and riffing with the audience, almost having in-full conversations with them. So we all got into that mentality. I was on second to last that night, so the excitement was kind of at its peak before I went on. But the guy who was on before me, he was having a bit of trouble with his routine. So his routine was about the difficulties of having sex with somebody when you don't find them attractive. And it was a good routine, but the audience just wasn't getting into it. So he said, hey, do you know what it's like not being able to get an erection when you're dating someone you don't find attractive? And the entire audience just went, no. They followed when Alfred stepped to us, like, nah, mate, no. So I wanted to try and help him out, being a fellow up-and-coming comedian, but I also wanted to big myself up because I was on after him. So I said, out loud, sitting next to the older and rather drunk audience, they're in their 50s now, they have a different reason for not getting an erection at their age. Thank you, Jack. I should not have said that, because as soon as I got on the mic, they fucking hated me. I did not get one decent laugh that night, and I was giving them my best material, and they just looked at me like they wanted to kill me. I practically saw the torches and pitchforks being brought out at the end. I got out of that venue pretty damn quick. I mean, I had to anyway. I was going to London the next day, but at the very least I had a more decent excuse at that point. But like I said, there's always things to learn, and that taught me that you do need to respect your audience when you're a part of it. When you're on the stage, you can roast them to your heart's content, which is what I'm going to be doing today. Oh yes, oh yes. So I should also point out, so if you don't know, the phone that's at the front, this is live stream, so everything that's going on has been broadcast so far live in front of tens of people. Are you checking how many people are watching?
We can't actually tell.
About 11.
11? I was correct.
Double digits, baby.
Indeed. But this also means that
12.
Oh, good. It just went up by 1.
It's like sense you.
Exactly. But this does mean that if anybody does heckle, that does mean it will be recorded and it will always be on there. So go on, heckle.
I dare you.
Oh dear. But yeah, so roasting time. It's the first one of the night. Oh yes. You're going to regret sitting at the front now, guys. So like I said, these guys are from Yorkshire. They're some online fans and friends of mine. I run my own online community, and these guys are a part of it. And actually the genesis of this show was Ben, the guy with the big beard here, kind of looks like Brian Blessed Jr. So he said, I would love to come and see you perform live in person. And I thought, if we're going to do that, we should make it a big event, make it a full show. So these people have made it all the way down here to see me today. And it's really cool, but I must say, because we met up before the show around about 3 o'clock, we went and had some lunch. And I tell you what, us walking down the street together, it looked like some sort of Cro-Magnon tribute party. It's like some kind of skip in human evolution that had somehow survived and was wearing flannel. It's like, and Luke, with one exception of Luke, because he's clean shaven, together you could call them the Beardy Boys.
And technically I'm from Manchester, not Yorkshire.
He is from Manchester, I should say. He's a Manc, not a Yorkie. But yeah, and as you can see, Ben does have a massive beard. He has hidden many things in that beard. So if a bottle of Advocaat goes missing from the bar, check him before he leaves. Oh dear. Strap yourselves in, it's going to be one hell of a night. And one thing I should say, as we get into this show proper, one thing I will say is, all right, my darlings.
Yay!
It's like 3 people in the audience are going mad for that, and everyone else is going, that was a joke. That's what counts as humour these days. Which my dad's in the audience tonight. I'm sure that's what he's going to be saying throughout most of the show. But yeah, let's get things started. So, I've just turned 30, so it's not going to be too long now before I start shaking hands with my doctor with my arsehole. That's the first of many mental images in your head that you didn't want, but I've put in there, so you're welcome. But you can just imagine it, can't you? It's just sort of like, hello doctor, nice to meet you. I didn't know you were engaged. that sort of stuff is very important though. You do need to get that stuff checked when you get to that age, because the prostate is very important, particularly because it's what regulates you getting an erection. And you don't want to risk Viagra at that age, because if it goes wrong and you die, they won't be able to get the lid on the coffin. It'd be horrific. It'd be like something out of that bit from The Incredibles where they're going, oh, fuck it. Tell the family it's going to be after open casket. Tell them to bring some donuts, they can play hoopla. At least the maggots will have a bit more to eat when we bury him. That being said, like, all jokes aside, I have had to have the old a couple of times, and don't worry, I'm not talking about what I get up to at the weekends. Which, considering that this is a Sunday, if I go missing for 5 minutes after the gig, don't come looking for me. But this is actually to do with a situation that happened many years ago. So just to get into a bit of another story. So I love Canada. So as you can see, got my Canada hat and everything. So Canada is one of my favorite places to go. I've been there for many, many years. I've got relatives there. It's just an amazing country. And like most countries, there are things you can get there that you can't get here, particularly food. And there was one kind of food that I always wanted to try, which is Twinkies. So if you don't know, Twinkies are those little sponge pastry cakes that have cream in them. You see them in TV shows and movies in America all the time. And I thought, I've never tried, because you can get them in this country, but because of the import tax, they cost like £10 for a pack of 2, so I just didn't think it was worth it. So I thought, okay, I'll get some while I'm over there. What I didn't realize at the time is Twinkies never go out of date. And the reason for this is because they put piles and piles and piles of incredibly heavy preservative chemicals in there that we don't use in this country. So it was not exactly nice once I ate those 2 Twinkies. It was like the Battle of the Somme going on in my guts. Because I had these Twinkies while I was waiting at the bus station, because I was going to go to Niagara Falls. I was catching a megabus there. And yes, even in that country, I get people saying, "Isn't that you on the back of the bus?" And I'm planning to move to Canada next year, so I can still keep doing that joke while I'm there. But so I ate them, and I swear there was a point on the bus where my stomach actually went. To which the guy sitting on the chair in front of me said, "Why the hell did you punch me in the back of the head?" But of course, all of that has to come to a head, somewhat, no pun intended there, but it has to come to a head when it comes out the other end. And it was not pleasant at all. So it was basically like there was no solid whatsoever. It was just all the way out. And so basically the best way to kind of give an analogy on this without being too disgusting, you know that bit in Jurassic Park where that really fat guy is getting chased and attacked by that dinosaur that spits acid in his face? Just imagine that coming out of my arsehole. So maybe that's actually not what the dinosaur was doing. Maybe he wasn't trying to attack him. He was just going, "I've eaten too many Twinkies, please help me." But yeah, it was not pleasant, and because when you're basically pooing straight acid, it doesn't do very good things to the very delicate tissue membranes of the inner anus. So it gave me the most horrendous rash in the world. So it's like the kind of rash that it's so bad, I was actually scratching it while I was sleeping. And of course, when you're sleeping, you don't get this idea of, well, I should stop now, because it wasn't going to go away no matter how much I itched it. So I woke up in the morning and my hand was covered in blood. And I just woke up and I thought, oh God, did I kill someone in my sleep again? And then I checked myself out and I was like, oh, thank God I didn't turn into a werewolf this time. So I went to the doctor and she sorted it all out. She gave me some cream and it's all cleared up, so that's all good. But that just happened because I ate a pack of Twinkies. So yeah, that happens. But you do get to a point where you get to an age where your body can't quite keep up with your lifestyle anymore. And that's definitely started to happen to me, that's for sure. Like, something happened to me just a few weeks ago. So I went to the Foodies Festival in Brighton, which is an amazing festival, by the way. It's just this, oh, you've been there?
I live there.
Hey, you live in Brighton, yay! But yeah, no, I went to the Foodies Festival a few weeks ago, and it's this amazing open-air festival with a bunch of food tents from food from all over the world, and they've also got an open-air concert there. And I actually got in for free because my friends from the band Absuma, yeah, they were performing there, and technically I'm part of their tech support team because I do their filming, so they allowed me to go in for free. But one of the problems is that it was an open-air festival, so there were no chairs whatsoever, and because I was filming, that basically meant that I was up, down, up, down, up, down all day. And I was pretty much wearing exactly what I am now, and I guess it was either like the belt buckle or my zip fly was pinching on this area of my skin right here, which I didn't realize at the time. So after the gig was over, I went in the shower because it was hot, I needed to wash myself off. And as most wet, naked men tend to do, my hand danced around that area. And I thought, wait, what the hell is that? So I need to take a look at this thing, because obviously it was quite big and bulbous, but well, to put it delicately, I had not manscaped in a while at that point. So it's basically the best way of putting it is that you could have grabbed hold of it with both hands, full gripped, ripped an entire thatch out, and it still would have looked like Captain Caveman down there. Or since he's here, Ben's face. So there's a mental image for you, Ben's face on my crotch. Something I imagine he's probably thought about a few times. So I needed to sort it out, so I needed to get rid of most of that static around there so I could see what was going on. Unfortunately, I don't have any proper manscaping tools, so you can actually buy razors and electric razors that have filters and guards on them so that you don't cause any damage down there, because that part of the skin is so delicate and spongy, it's very easy to nick yourself, particularly around the scrotal area. It's like this weird fleshy brain kind of texture. It's just so awkward. Like, you nick it once and it looks like a brain that's had an aneurysm. And so, like, I'm shaving myself and I'm trying to get as close as I can, but without touching. It was like, imagine that scene from Mission Impossible, where Tom Cruise is navigating through all the lasers, and he thinks, if I touch one of these, it's all going to collapse in on me. Just imagine that, but with pubic hair. But I got it all sorted out, got it cleaned up, and then so I looked at myself in the mirror, because it would have been easier to do that than looking down, and looking at me through the dark was just this enormous red welt. It looked like I was growing my own clitoris. So like I had to sort it out because like welts normally go away on their own, but you need to make sure that they're not going to get infected. So I tried to just give it a squeeze just to make sure there wasn't any pus or anything. But at that point when you realize that the skin there is so spongy, it's nearly impossible to get good purchase. It's basically like trying to chase the last profiterole around the bowl with a teaspoon. And I'm sure there's many people here going, I'm never going to eat profiteroles again. Thank you very much for that. It's all part of the Overington diet plan. But that was just a situation that was caused from sitting up and down too much on a grass floor. So that really hit it home for me that my body's not quite able to keep up with my lifestyle as much as it used to. Like I said, I've just turned 30. That's the point where most young people consider it to be old age. I don't feel old because I've always felt tired and worn out. So it's not that much different for me. But I tell you one thing that isn't tired and worn out, roasting. Oh yes, so we're going to go back to that. So who have we got in today? Yes. Lily? I think she's already gotten a bit fed up with how much Tuve roasted her, but I know more about you than she does. That's one of the benefits, actually, of having most of this audience made up of my friends and family. I've got so much material to work off of. So actually, one thing I want to say about this, because this is something that acts as a joke all on its own. So as she said, she's got a fiance here with her, and his name is Thanos. Do you have a brother named Thor by any chance? No. But so Lily was actually one of the actors on a film I made for my master's degree back in 2017. So it was a little 3-person short film. It was about a scientist trying to communicate with his dead wife. And she played, I think in a sense, she was the main role. I mean, technically she wasn't the main character, but I think she was the standout role of that movie because, yes, indeed. But you were such a prima donna on that shoot. But no, she was amazing, I have to say. She was definitely the highlight of that movie. But I remember just like hanging around, because you couldn't drive at the time and neither could I, so we were catching trains and cabs everywhere.
I was driving you.
You did drive me at one point, yes. But now she works with kids, so careers change. But it seems like she's doing an amazing job. But a little backstory. So a few weeks ago, she actually tried to get me a job with the company that she works for, which I thank you so much for trying on that. That was so kind of you. And so I would have been working with like primary school kids. So we went all the way through the process. We did all the checks. I was completely clean until they went to the social media check. And then they found me doing stuff like this. And they said, no, we don't want to hire you anymore. So, easy come, easy go, I suppose. But again, thank you so much for giving a try, Lily. That was so sweet of you. But yeah, like I said, it does feel like my body's having trouble keeping up with me these days. But to be fair, that's not necessarily anything new. I've always had problems with medical ailments throughout my entire life, particularly with my teeth. I've always had bad dental problems. The big part of that being that my mum used to be a dental nurse, so it doesn't matter how well I do my teeth, they're never to her standard. But even then, I've had some problems that have really needed sorting out. And one of those problems led to what I like to call the trifecta of pain. It's like 3 horrible, painful incidents caused by the same problem, and that was my wisdom teeth. So I've still got my wisdom teeth on my top jaw because they haven't descended enough to cause any damage so they can stay there. The ones on the bottom jaw, however, they were actually growing in sideways. So and this was a big deal because I grew up having braces. I had to wear braces, and naturally, I never cared for it very much. It's such a bore having braces. Near the end of it, I was so fed up with it. I was finding any kind of magnets or metallic toys and sticking them to my braces. By the end of it, I looked like the world's worst Jaws from James Bond cosplay. But eventually, so my teeth are nice and straight as a result, and so my mum and my dentist were like, oh my god, he can't have this done because the teeth are going to go crooked. All of our hard work and money's going to go down the drain. Which kind of feels insulting that they see my teeth as nothing but a portfolio for their work. But either way, it's so imagine that these are my front teeth. The wisdom teeth are coming in like this. Like some sort of ivory jaws. Dentist. Dentist. And so it causes pressure on the teeth and it pushes them together. So if we hadn't gotten it done, my 2 front teeth on the bottom jaw would have looked like a back broken garden fence. With just as many bugs and rats crawling through it, most likely. So we went to the dentist, but the problem is that the dentist my mum used to work at, which is the regular dentist that I go to, they have no official dental surgeons there. They have regular dentists, orthodontists, and hygienics. No one who can knock me out and pull the teeth out. So we had to go to the NHS for that. But the NHS being the NHS, they wouldn't take them out unless it was an emergency. So we had to lie and say, oh my god, it's causing so much bleeding, it's infected, it's yelling at him, calling him a bastard, we have to get rid of him now. So they said, okay, again, we'll get you in, we'll sort that out. So this led to, at this point, the first and only general anesthetic I've ever had to have in my life. So essentially what they had to do was that they put a drip in me and they knocked me out and they sawed a bit of an explanation here. They couldn't remove the whole wisdom tooth because the roots were too close to the nerves on my jaw. So if they removed the whole thing, it would have caused massive nerve damage. I probably would have ended up sounding like Sylvester Stallone. Which, as I proved earlier, I don't do a very good Sylvester Stallone voice.
You would have.
Yeah, exactly, I would have. But so they wanted to do it carefully, so what they did was that they sawed my crowns off and pulled them out, and then flapped the bit of gum over and stitched it up to cover up the wound. Sounds horrible, but to be honest, because I was under general, I didn't really feel any of it. And by the time I woke up, the painkiller was still in my body, so I didn't really feel any of that either. But the healing process was pretty severe. But the funniest part about it was, so like I said, it's the only general anesthetic I've ever had in my life. Although the year before I had it, I very nearly had a different one for an operation that I would have had to have had on my penis. I don't know why I said it like that. But thankfully that was a problem that sorted itself out, so we didn't need to do it. But I always thought the first general anesthetic I ever had would have been a penile-related operation. So for some reason that was playing on my mind as I was going under, and anyone who's had a general anesthetic these days knows that they don't do what they used to do in the old days and count backwards from 10. Now they engage you in small talk. Yeah. And because that was playing on my mind, for whatever reason, the last thing I said to the anesthesiologist as I was going under was, I very nearly had to have this same thing happen to me last year, but on my penis. And she just looked at me and said, huh. And that's the last thing I remember until I woke up. But I just imagine her going back to like the nurse's station and going, you will not believe what this patient said to me as he was going under. I've had some weird things said to me by people on drugs, but that is downright the weirdest. But that was only the beginning of this trifecta of pain, so that was one. The second time, so basically they put stitches around the gums to cover up the wound, but either they didn't do it very well or the stitches must have come out early or something, because some bacteria did get into the wound and it caused the most biggest abscess you have ever seen in your life. It was seriously like out to here. I looked like I was constantly mocking people for giving blowjobs. Which, considering I went to university in Brighton, was not a good image. Especially if I went to any of the gay bars at night. That led to some very interesting evenings. And the ironic thing is, this is exactly what we told the NHS dentist was happening to me to remove my wisdom teeth in the first place. So it was a self-fulfilling prophecy. But so, and I was trying to ignore it, you know, being young, virile, I was in the middle of doing my dissertation. I thought, no, we can ignore it. But my friends, like even the most wild party friends who would like show up after the weekend with 5 teeth and an eye missing, were going, no, you need to go to the dentist. That is not good. So I said, okay, fine, I'll go. And conveniently, Sussex University actually has a dentist on campus and a GP. At least it used to. I don't think it does anymore. They might have gotten rid of it. But I went there and they said, okay, yeah, we need to get that sorted. So what they did was, and there's no nice way of saying this, they shot me up with local anesthetic, they cut my jaw open from the inside, they stuck in an air hose, and they played what I like to call the pus bagpipe. Which, given the noises I was making as they were doing it to me, was very apropos. It's just like, Amazing Grace. It was not pleasant. Although I suppose it could have been worse. It could have been like the Irish bagpipes where they put the squeeze bladder in between their legs. Although, if it was a really hot female dentist with no underwear on, I wouldn't have needed the anesthetic. Hey! But yeah, it was not a pleasant experience. So they got that sorted. And yeah, so I had to spend the next few days in bed swilling antibacterial mouthwash and taking antibiotics to get rid of it. And it went down, and it wasn't too bad of a deal after that. So we went back to the NHS a few months later after I'd finished my university course, and they said, oh yeah, actually, we can take your roots out now. They've grown far enough away from the nerves. I was like, well, that's convenient, isn't it? I go through all that and you can finally take the whole stuff out. So they got me in for one last operation, but for whatever reason, in their infinite wisdom, they thought, oh yeah, the last one we put you under general anesthetic, but for this one that's going to be more complicated and more traumatizing, we'll put you under local. To which I was like, okay. So they got me in the chair, they shot me up, and to add even more to my worries, the person they got in was a trainee student dentist. Who had never done this before. And evidently she was just as scared as I was, because 15 minutes after prodding and poking, she had no idea what to do. So she brought in a proper dentist, and he didn't know what to do either. So he brought in another one, and then another one, and then another one, until seriously, there was a point where I had about 6 different dentists crowded around my head. I felt like a car having its MOT done. Which, to be honest, it probably would have been better to go to a mechanic, because he probably would have done a better job. But eventually what they decided was that, and again, not pleasant to say, but what they did was that they drilled into my roots, caused a small shock wave to shatter them, and then pulled them out piece by piece. And again, I was conscious whilst this was happening. It was not nice. And the worst part about it is, all of that, the anesthetic wouldn't work. So I don't know if like they watered it down with lemonade or something, but it didn't matter. Like they put it in, and it's like I can still feel what's going on, and it's like, okay, we'll put more into you. And I kept going, I can still feel it. Give me more. There had to be a point where they were thinking, is this guy actually in some dental trouble, or is he just some junkie who came in for a hit of morphine? But, you know, they did all that, and like I said, they shattered it and pulled it out piece by piece, and I was so tempted to say to them, you break it, you buy it. Although I was still under anaesthetic, and even though it didn't help the pain, it was still making my jaw and my nerves all wobbly, so I would have said it as, you break it, you buy it. But, you know, that led to, like I said, that was the end of the pain trifecta. That is hands down the 3 most painful states I've ever been in my life. There's only 2 that have come close. One is when I had tonsillitis when I was 17, where one of my tonsils was so swollen it nearly covered my entire throat. And the other one was actually something that happened to me here, was that last year I was doing a gig, and before I went on stage, I went to the toilet. And those of you who have noticed, this place is not a place built for tall people. This is not a place where people like me, Ben and Luke feel at home. Or Jack for that matter, he's quite tall as well.
It's fine, it's lovely.
So I have to duck every time I go under the architraves here, but the toilet, the part leading to the toilet, are you doing your own show at the back there? But the path going to the toilet's even worse, because there's these incredibly low-hanging hardwood beams that go up to only about 5 feet. So when I came here last year to do a gig, before I went on, I went to the toilet, and I knew there was one bar, so I ducked. I forgot there was a second bar, and I raised up, and I banged my head right into the bar, and I had concussion for 2 weeks. That being said, even though I did that, I still went on stage and did a show. That is the absolute ultimate definition of do it for your art, lovey. And like people would say something like, oh, that sounds as bad as having needles in your eyes. I've actually had needles in my eyes, and I would actually like to have it done better. No joke, like I had a thing on my eyelid which is known as a trapped pore, which is basically like the part where sweat and natural oils comes out, grows over with skin. You've got this little water balloon of goop right above my eye. So it's like, we had to go and get that sorted, obviously, but my mum, having a bit of a dermatology obsession, she was like, no, I can do it myself.
Oh no!
So, and no exaggeration, she pinned me down to the sofa, put an ice cube on my eye, and tried to pop it with a sewing needle.
Oh!
How are you alive?
I actually stopped her probably about a millimeter away from my eye. I was like, so no, we have to get this done professionally. This is not going to work. I'm so glad I did, because if I didn't, I'd probably be hosting a show known as One-Eyed Overington. But eventually we went to a professional dermatologist, and honestly, compared to all the other operations I had, it was the most soothing, relaxing, and non-painful experience ever. Like, all I had was just a shot of anesthetic into my eye, which felt just like a tiny scratch above my eyelid. And then they continued on with the procedure. I couldn't feel or see anything. And it only took about 15 minutes. And I was able to take the bandage off my eye after about 2 hours. So sort of like, that's an operation that most people would wince at the idea at. It had no problem with me, absolutely, whatsoever. So stop being a baby and get needles shoved into your eye. Anyway, now that I'm done traumatizing you with stories of my medical woes, now it's time for me to traumatize you by roasting you again. Oh yes. It's the Sussex boys. So these guys are actually old friends of mine from university. We went to the University of Sussex together. We used to be part of the Video Game Society, believe it or not. We always had good times there, but we always used to play Smash Brothers. We would always play that. Yeah, Jack's already creasing because he knows where I'm going with this. And we used to have Smash Brothers tournaments, and I tell you, I have never seen more drama, more tears, and more vitriol than out of an episode of Game of Thrones than at one of those tournaments. It's like there are people who would almost stake their lives on these tournaments, and like after they would lose, I would see them actually crying in a corner. And it's just sort of like, it's just a game, for crying out loud. But then I say that, I'm pretty into video games myself, but I'm just not that very competitive, so it never really was an issue for me. But yeah, that was always, I'd never forget those nights. I would just see some friends of ours, like this big Welsh lad that we knew. He had, Jack knows exactly what I'm talking about. This big Welsh guy who had this huge flaming red hair and a big thick beard. And he was just, after he lost his second match, he was just sitting in the corner, just weeping. And he's just going, I don't know what I'm doing, lad.
That's Kieran, by the way.
Yes, it is. I was trying to save on saying his name, but yeah, they said it for me. But I'll never forget those days. Those were a lot of fun.
Thank you, George.
You're very welcome. So like I said, I've been doing stand-up for about a year now, and I've had a couple of, a couple of dry shows. Apart from that one in Yapton, I don't think I've ever had a really bad show. And I've been getting so much good feedback, like so many people saying, you're so good at this, you should have been doing this for years, I always love seeing your stuff. But I always appreciate getting constructive feedback, and I'm always willing to listen to it, whilst pointing a loaded shotgun at the person who's saying it to me. But one of my favourite bits of feedback I ever got was from a friend of mine from America. She said to me that she really loved my first set, but she felt that I smiled too much when I get the punchlines. To which I said, of course, because when I don't smile, I look like this. So unless I'm understudying Ramesh Ranganathan, it's not a good look to have for a comedian. It's actually such a severe resting bitch face, it's actually soaked through to the other side. So, oh, that got my dad to stand up. That was the limit for him. So a bit of context on that. I actually came up with that routine on the first night I met Tuve. So we were doing this gig at Brighton, a nice open mic stuff, which sadly they don't do it anymore at that venue. But I literally came up with this idea on the way to the venue. It's like it wasn't premeditated at all. I was like, eyes on the back of my head. That would be funny. So I went to my mum to borrow a mascara pencil. And then I went to the venue and I just asked one of the other comics, hey, can you draw some eyes on the back of my head? And it's like, yeah, that would be great. So we just disappeared into the toilet for 5 minutes and we came out giggling. Which again, considering it was Brighton, is not a great image. The only way it could have looked worse is if we had some white powder under our noses. But it got a huge response, like it has tonight. And it got some good responses even from people who weren't at the venue. So I was walking back home to my car, and as I passed under the lamppost and people saw it, and they yelled at me, "Hey, why you got a pair of tits tattooed on the back of your head?" To which I said, "It's the closest thing to tits you're going to see tonight, mate." I ran pretty fast after I said that. The Irvington comedy charm making friends once again. Oh dear. But that being said, like weird eyes on the back of my head aside, I do have a lot of weird genetic foibles, which comes from my weird heritage. So I would bring my dad up on stage to demonstrate this, but I'm pretty sure after speaking all of this rubbish, he's denying he even knows me at this point. I'm going to be written out of his will when he gets home tonight. There you go. But my dad, I've always thought my dad's a really good-looking guy. He got really lucky with his genetics. He's slim, he's well-built, he's got really good definition, and annoyingly, he's still got a full head of hair. It's really annoying that my granddad's bald, my brother's getting there, he's still got a full head of hair. You need to give me the name of that badger you shave every night. But I think he's turned out really well. He's still really good looking and keeping himself together. For a man who's in his 60s, it's really impressive. But I will say that... Oh, you got a small round of applause back there. But I will say there are some things that I'm kind of glad that I sidestepped with my dad, like with his nose and ears. Like, they work well on my dad because he's got a slimmer frame and a weirdly tall, slim Postman Pat-like head. So it works on him. If it was on me, with the shape of my head and my frame, I'd look more like an elephant than the actual Elephant Man did. So, yeah, I got lucky in that regard. But at the same time, I think I got the best out of all of his features, particularly my eyes. I definitely got my dad's eyes in that regard. My mum's side has good eyes as well, but my dad's eyes are nice and wide and expressive. My mum's side are much more slim and kind of very tightly defined. So, again, with my kind of look and my kind of face, this is fine. This isn't. I look like instead of being on the stage, I should be outside the venue going, "You can't come in, you're wearing trainers." Although that might be a benefit as my career goes forward, is that I can act as my own bouncer. Oh dear. But yeah, on my dad's side, like, we are so pedigree English, it's ridiculous. Like, my dad aside, most of my dad's side of my family, we're so British, we look like potatoes with matchsticks sticking out of us. Sorry, Granddad Ted, I love you. But it's a weird contrast on my mum's side, because my mum's got a much more exotic kind of heritage, because it may be hard to believe, but actually on my mum's side, I'm 1/18 black. And I know it's impossible to believe because I both act and look like the whitest person in the universe, but it is actually true. It's like, basically to equate this to some sort of analogy, it's like having the most bland pasta in the universe and then sprinkling a load of cocaine on it. Or having the most wild orgy in the universe and the soundtrack is fucking Enya. Or if you want to equate this to baking, which, in a way, that's what genetics is. You just mash a bunch of stuff together and you get something new. And the process will often leave you hot and sticky. But if we equate this to baking, effectively what it is that I'm a marble cake, but a person forgot to put too much of the chocolate in. But you can still taste the chocolate. Credit to Ben for coming up with that joke, so thank you very much. But that being said, I am quite proud of my face. Like, I know I'm not in good shape, but I am still quite comfortable with the way I look. But I think I genuinely have a nice face. I think I look quite handsome. And if you ever want to get on my good side, just call me handsome. Why do you think Tuve opened for me tonight? I like to think I'm quite charming as well, but I do learn from odd experiences that I do annoy people quite a bit. And I learned this from an incredibly unvarnished way a couple of years ago. So one of my other passions is that I do filmmaking. That's what I went to university to learn. I've been making films since I was 10, and I still do freelance filmmaking from time to time as one of my side gigs. So you get to meet a lot of different clients through this sort of work. Not all of them are going to be particularly nice. It's like one time I did a gig a few years ago in Brighton, which was, I was helping a guy with his social media campaign for his business to do with Bitcoin. I know, I should have known better, I know, but I needed the money.
Did you get paid?
Yeah, I got paid £200. Which, to give you a yardstick on how badly I got stiffed on that job, part of this campaign was this guy showing off how rich he was. So he went to the Apple store in Brighton and bought brand new Apple Macs and iPhones and iPads and headphones and just gave them out on the street for free to random people. I got paid £200.
You didn't get the iPhone?
No, I didn't get anything.
Didn't get any new headphones?
No. He went bankrupt a year later, so I think I won. I mean, it would have been nice to get a free iPhone out of the deal, but you know, you've got to take what you can. But you can kind of gather the sort of person this guy was like from that story. He was all gas, no brakes, nowhere to go sort of person. You get to know these sorts of people a lot in my kind of work. And admittedly, sometimes I can live like that in my personal life, but when I'm working, I'm a consummate professional. I'm always coming up with a plan. I'm always trying to think of the possibilities, both bad and negative. I'm always trying to make sure we stay within the law and we try and do everything as best as we can to not give us any problems, which completely clashed with his personality. And we were constantly arguing with each other. It's like, I think we should do this. No, we shouldn't. You should. And me being a professional, I was trying to be as gracious as I could and try and meet him halfway on everything, but it was just not working. So at one point I had to go off and I needed to talk to some people a bit further away, and he was still mic'd up with my lapel mic, and I took my camera with me, which had the headphones plugged in. Once I got a few yards away, he really started slagging me off. But he didn't know I could still hear him through the microphone. And so he was saying things like, oh, this bald bastard with a tiny dick. He's got nothing to do, it's like, I can't do anything without pissing him off. I'm only going to pay him £200 at the end of this. And like I said, he had no idea that I could hear this. So, but again, trying to be professional, I didn't want to cause any issues from this. So I pretended I couldn't hear him. So then I walked back to him and I said, shall we carry on then? Like I said, he went bankrupt a year later. So in the end, I kind of won. But yeah, it would have been nice to get a bit more money out of the deal. Oh dear. Okay, so I think it's time to turn this into a Sunday carvery because it's time for one more roast. Oh. So let's see who we got around here to roast again. I don't even know who you are, so I can't even roast you.
Just start saying things.
And it's like, maybe that's a roast in and of itself. You're so unremarkable, I don't even know how to take it. Exactly. But there you go. I roasted you by not roasting you. That was probably the easiest thing for me to do in the world. Oh dear. So I'm not normally a late night person, so I'm probably going to be up for a while after this gig's over to sort of bask in the adulation of my fans. Yes. But I'm not a late night person. I'm much more of an early to bed, early to rise kind of person. So it is kind of harder for me to get to sleep when I've been up for so long. Very much like an erection in that regard. The longer it stays up, the harder it is to get back down again. It also leads to some rather bad dreams as well, as in staying up too late, not having an erection for too long. Although that can do it too. But I've always had weird dreams growing up. We've always done that thing when we were kids where we would have a bad dream and we would go over to our parents and go, "I sleep in bed with you tonight." Which gets a bit awkward when you keep trying to do that after you've turned 18. But there is a story my dad told me a few weeks ago that I had to mention. So I did, when I was about 5, I did that. I had a bad dream and went to my parents. I snuggled in bed between them, fell asleep, and my mum in her half asleep state said, "You got to take him back to bed now." So my dad in his half asleep state got up and he tried to pick me up and he went, "God, he's getting a bit heavy, isn't he?" And my mum, now fully awake, said, "That's not him, that's me, you idiot." There was a lot of space in my dad's bed for a few weeks after that. He was sleeping on the sofa for a long time. Oh dear. Okay, so probably time to start wrapping things up now. Aww. That's the noise I was waiting for. But can't keep this going all night. I wish I could, but I do still have a few more jokes to tell you before we get to the end.
Yes,
I've only been doing comedy for about a year, but in a way, I've sort of been entertaining people for as long as I can remember. I've been always trying to make people laugh, always trying to make people happy, many times unintentionally. But I guess in a way that shows I was born to be a comedian. I can make people laugh without even trying. I think in a way that comes down to a lot with my name, because my name in itself is almost like an unintentional joke. So for those who don't know, my full name is George Oliver Overington. And yes, that means my initials spell goo. Which, considering what I'm like in the morning before I get in the shower, that's actually quite an appropriate nickname. My brother actually got it a lot better in this regard because his full name is Matthew Reynold Overington, and he's in the audience tonight, so I'm sure he's going to come up to me after the show and go, "I'm going to fucking kill you for getting my full name out on camera." You knew this was coming. But so his initials are MRO, so he's Mr. O, which is exactly who he is. He's Mr. Overington. So he got a lot better in that nickname regard. But it also, even the meanings, going back to what Tuve was going about with meanings of names, even that came into an unintentional joke in my regard. So George is an old term which means farmer, Oliver means olive tree, and Overington is an old Anglo-Saxon term which means farm by the riverbank. So my full name literally means farmer of the olive tree farm by the riverbank. So now I know what I'm going to do when I retire.
Yes.
Depending on what way you look at it, my brother either got off better or worse again in this regard, because both Matthew and Reynolds mean God's gift. So his full name is God's gift by the riverbank. So again, you could argue that was worse because it's not a coherent sentence like mine, but at the same time, he's got God's blessing twice. It probably explains why he's engaged and has a good job in a house, and I'm up here talking bollocks. Oh dear. But it's like, what's in the name really? We can go by any kind of name and we'll probably end up the same person. But I do think that we do grow somewhat to our name. So my mum had a lot of different ideas what sort of name I should have. So Oliver was one option, that's why that's my middle name. One of which was Xavier.
I beg your pardon?
I don't think that would fit with me, do you?
Yes.
Javier Lovely.
For the record, what my mum actually thought, the name she actually got was Xavier, but she thought it was pronounced Xavier. So that would have been really interesting. It's like, I'm Professor Charles Xavier, and here are my Oxmen. Although, actually, to be fair, with Professor Xavier, I suppose with the way my hairline turned out, that actually would have been quite appropriate. But my dad shot both of those down. On the way back to the hospital, he thought, basically, on the way back to the hospital, he happened to hear George Michael on the car radio. And he thought, George, that's a nice name. So I am actually literally named after George Michael. I don't think I quite followed up in his footsteps. I'm nowhere near as good looking. I'm nowhere near as well chiseled. I don't have his amazing blonde hair.
Not true.
I've also never had sex in a public bathroom stall,
That's good.
but we can maybe we can change that after this show is over. I'm also, I will admit, I'm not necessarily as great of a singer as he was. I mean, he was an absolutely incredible singer, but that doesn't mean that I can't sing at all, which... Yes. So which I'm going to demonstrate. So yeah, Jacob's getting up because he knows his moment has come.
Give George another round of applause.
Thank you. So yeah, so since this is my first big show, we couldn't just end it on like a typical sort of, hey, you've been a great crowd, which you have for the record. You've been an amazing crowd. So thank you very much. But we needed to do a bit more than just filling out the quota and then ending.
We
So
need more. We need more.
we are going to end off tonight with a song. So, Tom, are you ready at the computer?
Ready.
Okay. So, you ready, Jacob?
We're ready. Let's do
Okay,
it.
so, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, go.
He's not playing at the right moment.
You
Back at the beginning, come on.
You're going to start from the beginning, Tom.
Give George another round of applause while he's doing it.
The devil went down to Georgia. He was looking for a soul to steal. He was in a bag, he was way behind, he was willing to make a deal. When he came across this young man sawing on the fiddle and playing a hat, and the devil jumped up on a hickory stump and said,
Boy, let me tell you what. I guess you didn't know it, but I'm a fiddle player too. And if you care to take a dare, I'll make a bet with you. You play a pretty good fiddle, son, but give the devil his due. I had a fiddle of gold against your soul. I think I'm better than you.
My name's Johnny, and it might be a sin, but I'll take your friend, you're gonna regret, cause I'm the best there's ever been.
Johnny, run on your
Go and play your fiddle hard, cause hell's broke loose in Georgia, and the devil deals the cards. And if you win, you get this shiny fiddle made of gold, and if you lose, the devil gets your soul.
Devil opened up his case and said, I'll start this show. And fire from his fingertips, he rolled up his bow. He dragged the bow across the strings and it made an evil hiss. And the band of demons joined in and it sounded something like this. Finished and Johnny said,
Well, you're pretty good, old son. Step out of that chair right now, let me show you how it's done. Run, 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 boys, run. The devil's in the house of the rising sun. Chicken in the bread pan, picking out dough. Branches it out like no child, no. Give it up for the amazing Jacob Keats, everybody!
The devil bowed his head because he knew that he'd been beat, and he laid that golden fiddle on the ground at Johnny's feet. Johnny said,
Devil, just come on back if you ever want to try again. Cause I told you once, you son of a gun, I'm the best there's ever been. He played Fire in the Mountain, run, boys, run. Devil's in the house of the rising sun. Chicken in the bread pan, kicking out dough. Friends up by no child.